Hey, what's up, Carmilla series? It's another video blog, and I'm going into review episode 10. So basically, this episode's called Sisters
And then we
Spy
get into
Craft.
the episode where
Maddie and Carmilla are having a conversation.
As
As we go into the progression of this episode, we get to see Carmilla finally doing something for Laura again on helping to spy on Maddie. So they're having this conversation, Maddie and Carmilla, where she wants to know information that could be useful on saving people in the university, helping the students go forth and deal with their situation at this moment in time without having someone to run it. And we see the two different perspectives between episode 9 and episode 10, where things are trying to be figured out and how Maddie really wants to run the campus. So she's kind of worse than the dean, which is her and Carmilla's mom. And we see a lot of angst in this episode because after that conversation that Maddie and Carmilla have, Laura seems pretty angry because Maddie just tells her that, yes, Laura, your relationship with Carmilla is a time bomb, and that is it. You have no choice. Vampire with human relationship, maybe not going so well as Laura wanted it to go and hope she gets, but she's still airheaded. I'm sorry, Laura. I'm sorry to the actress that plays Laura. That's just my take. Is your character supposed to be a little bit airheaded? I don't know if that's true, but that's the writers, and that has nothing to do with you. But I feel like you're still a little bit airheaded, but you're doing the right and the wrong situation all at one time, and progression. And that's how we see it. So after that, after that whole angst, and we all know that Laura could have taken that whole conversation between Maddie and Carmilla a little bit better. The fact that, things might not pan out the way Laura might have thought when she did get in a relationship with Carmilla, to the fact that she has to hold and contain her emotions. And it's hard because we know being a little bit of an airhead and containing your emotions is one of the hardest things ever. And that's just the difficulty when you're doing something like this in a video blog and trying to contain yourself. But that's script writing, and that's a whole different discussion. After we see that whole conversation and Laura's storming out, we see the next scene with Laura, LaFontaine, Perry, and Carmilla looking all messed up and bruised a little bit, and LaFontaine carrying climbing gear or a big climbing gear of some sort, and they look all bruised and run down. So how that is, they just came from the crater and they've been followed, so they've been trying away from the suits, the guys in the black suits, which is the Corvée Corporation, or people who are working with the Corvée Corporation. Laura is not happy the fact that she forgot how fun it is to go into the crater and deal with all that kind of stuff. And it looks pretty messy, pretty much, in this episode. And at the very end of this, we see Kirsch running in. It's a prelude to episode 11, and the fact that he runs in after somehow looking all bruised. But back to the whole scene of this whole episode. So the synopsis is basically Carmilla spying on Maddie. Perry, LaFontaine, Laura, and Carmilla get bruised and injured and looking very disorganized or very messed up in terms of them returning from the crater, and Perry just looking very distraught and very angry at Carmilla for not using her super strength by just being very generically normal. And not helping getting him out of the situation. She's pretty angry. And we see LaFontaine carrying all this gear, which oddly enough looked like it took her much weight to take that out of the crater. And Carmilla just being very angry, the fact that Barry just called her out and made her very angst. And the fact that this episode, Laura is now, I feel like, character-wise in this episode, she seems very perplexed, or very, pretty much very in odds with herself, and the fact that Carmilla is doing a lot for her is pretty much partially weighing on her, if that sounds about right. And now that she's got to deal with what she put herself through, and now that Kirsch runs into this episode, we get to see her emotional facial expressions of how she feels about everything. And it looks very blank, but I know somehow, some way, Laura is trying to figure things out and how she wants to plan it. So the prelude to this is just after the fact that we see a lot of difficulties that happen in this episode. We see a lot of perplexities and very complex people trying to get together and figuring things out. We see that maybe what they're planning to do originally wasn't really worth it at all. And we see that when you get into a relationship, not one person should be pulling the weight of how you should feel for someone, or how you should treat somebody in terms of being what you want to be to the other person, or how you want to look into other people's perspective. And this is what we see. We see perspective. Spies, complex personalities, trying to figure things out and mesh. Even though there's going to be a lot of angst and a lot of anger and distraughtness and distance, we have to eventually grow and figure things on how you want to progress later on. And that will prelude to episode 11, and pretty much that episode has to do with Kirsch. But for now, we will see you more, and that is my review for episode 10. See you more on the World Wide Web. Peace and one love.